What's going on, everybody? My name's Marco from Marco's Tech Talk, and today I'm going to be making a different kind of video. It's going to be a PC build guide video. I do this a lot for friends of mine. They always want to know what build I would recommend them, so I end up building one for them on PC Part Picker, and sometimes they end up actually building them, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, so I figure I do this anyway in my spare time, so I figure why not do it on the channel for you guys as well. I figure it'd be fun, and I appreciate you guys' feedback on it as well. And yeah, so anyway guys, without further ado, here's the video. Alright guys, so anyway, now that we're here, this is the build. So I went ahead and did a mid-range build here. As you guys can see, I would call it a high mid-range, like an upper tier kind of mid-range build, being that it is $950 after mail-in rebates, $982 before. And some of you may know that PC Part Picker does go for the lowest price regardless of vendor. So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and it looks like 4. So we have 4 different vendors here for this whole build. So keep that in mind. You might want to get all your parts from one vendor. You might not. Me, for example, I will always try to get stuff from Amazon, as I am an Amazon Prime member. So for me, it just makes sense to go ahead and buy stuff on Amazon because I just get everything at once in one shot rather than having to wait for this part to come in and that part to come in, and then if there's an issue with this part, I gotta deal with these people's return policy and then get a new part from them. It's just whatever. So you guys do what you want to do. Like I said, I will always be using Amazon until something better comes up, maybe one day. But yeah, so aside from that, these are, once again, the cheapest parts available, or the cheapest prices available for these parts from the various vendors, totaling $982, and then with the rebates comes out to $949. And then you'll have to add tax as well, depending on where you live. So anyway, the AMD Ryzen 5 2400G, I picked this one because to me it's definitely a higher kind of end mid processor, if that makes sense. It's not a Ryzen 7, but it's also not a Ryzen 3, right? So it's a Ryzen 5, so it's a decent processor. And this one, being the 2400G, does have the Vega 11 graphics in it. So it does have integrated graphics if you want to hold off on a graphics card for a little bit. But honestly, I have a 2200G in that 2200G build I did back a few months ago. It's sitting back there actually, and I tried playing Fortnite on it, and it was not really playable. That might have been due to the fact that I only have 4 gigabytes of RAM in that build, so that's probably part of the problem there, being that that's all we're going to have for the system and the graphics frame buffer. That's kind of not a lot to go around. And also, aside from that, the 2200G has the Vega 8 graphics card in it, whereas the Ryzen 5 has the Vega 11 graphics card in it. So yeah, so basically the cheapest price we're going to see here is $159 from Amazon and from some other places as well. This is our price history here and all that good stuff there. This processor is a quad core. I do believe it has AMD's SMT, which is like their hyper-threading. It's their multi-threaded thing. So I believe it is 4 cores with 8 threads, if I'm not mistaken. It does have the CPU cooler already in it. I think it's the Wraith cooler, if I'm not mistaken. It should be the Wraith cooler in this one, but it might not be, but I'm pretty sure it is. And it has the 3.6 GHz base clock and 3.8 GHz turbo clock, so that's pretty awesome for $160 CPU. That's pretty sweet. So yeah, so that's the processor there I chose for this build. The motherboard, I went really cheap, relatively speaking, because it's only $70. It's a gigabyte board. I prefer gigabyte boards for their dual BIOS, although I do not believe this particular board has dual BIOS because it is a lower end one. I believe that Gigabyte saves dual BIOS for their higher tier products, such as, well, mine for example, in my gaming PC, and the one I'm filming on right now, is a Skylake build. So it's got a Gigabyte Z170X Gaming 3, I think is what it was. I built it almost 2 years ago now, so I'm kind of starting to get a little rusty on what's in it exactly. But that board does have a dual BIOS, and it was $135, so it's nearly twice the price as this board. But you get dual BIOS, which to me is pretty cool. In case there's an issue with your BIOS, you can always revert to the backup one, in theory anyway. I've never had to do it myself, nor have I seen any videos of anyone doing it, but like I said, it's supposed to be possible, so that's why dual BIOS is something I prefer in a build I'm going to be using pretty much all the time. I don't really want any downtime or issues with that. So yeah, this is the B450 chipset. So it's not going to be the X470. It's not going to be as beefy for overclocking, but the B450 should be fine for the majority of people who don't really care about overclocking, and it should even be okay for some mild overclocking, from my understanding. I might be wrong, but from my understanding, it's okay at overclocking and all that. So it's a nice looking board. It does have an M.2 slot. This is a very small picture as well, unfortunately, but it does have an M.2 slot, which is very important. for the SSD that we're going to be putting in here in this build and all that there. So it does have 4 DIMM slots, which is a plus. You don't see that too much on micro ATX motherboards, especially at this price range. You don't see that often with an M.2 especially. That's really cool there and all that. It's a good looking PCB, I think, with the graphics on it. If you have a clear side panel case, that'll definitely look pretty cool in my opinion, depending on your theme that you want to go for. So next up, we're going to go to the RAM. And actually, before I do that, I want to make note here that the motherboard does support up to 3200 megahertz RAM and up to 64 gigs of RAM as well. So you have some expandability and future proofing as far as the RAM capacity goes for this board. And so anyway, the RAM speed is going to bring us into the actual RAM I chose. I did choose 8 gigabytes of 3200 megahertz RAM. It's $97 for 8 gigs of RAM, which is kind of crazy. I mean, I built this PC in, like I said, October of 16. I have 16 gigs of DDR4, 2400 in here. I got that for $70. So that's, I feel like that's never gonna happen again, unfortunately. but yeah, so this is 3200 megahertz RAM, 8 gigabytes. I feel like for most people, most games, most cases, this is gonna be what you're gonna need. If you can afford to spend the extra $100 or so on 16 gigs of RAM, I would do it if you can afford it, because that's definitely gonna help you out in the future. I would say, because 8 gigabytes is starting to become the minimum now, like pretty much the bare minimum now for gaming. So if you can afford to squeeze the extra $100 in there or so for the 16 gigabytes of RAM, please do that, because I think it'll help you out later on. Now for the storage, we're going to be doing the 970 EVO. The 970 is a pretty new SSD. The 970 EVO and 970 Pro came out maybe 2 months ago now, maybe 3 months ago, something like that. Definitely within the last 6 months for sure, and I would probably say within the last 3 months as well. So anyway, the 970 EVO is a pretty good SSD. The 970 Pro is better. I think it has better read and write speeds, but I feel like for 99% of the people that are going to need an SSD or want an SSD, the 970 EVO should suffice. I would see the 970 Pro being more useful if you're going to be rendering a lot of videos and editing a lot of videos in 4K on a workstation of some sort. I do edit videos. All my channel videos are, most of them are edited on my gaming PC, some on my gaming laptop. But yeah, my gaming PC has an M.2 drive in it, and it's not even an NVMe drive, so it does drop a lot of frames in 4K editing, which can get kind of annoying. So I definitely, in the next build, since I don't want to copy everything over to another drive, I'll just wait till I build another computer next year or two, and I will probably go ahead and get whatever the newest Pro is at that time, just for editing, because it is kind of annoying to have frame rate drops in 4K. So anyway, but with all that aside, sorry about the tangent there, I would totally go for a 970 EVO for most people. You can go with a 970 Pro, but the only thing is, at least on PC Part Picker, I don't see a 970 Pro available in a 250 gigabyte format, so I only see it in a 512. So that's definitely going to bring the price up there, just not only because of the storage, but because it is a Pro. And if you want to compare that to the EVO at the 500 gigabyte mark, we're at $180. So what is that? Like $50, $60 more, something like that. I don't know. Just eyeballing it. But so I mean, the Pro is going to be a little bit more money. But if you can afford the Pro and you think you're going to use the Pro, maybe you should get the Pro. I mean, I would get the Pro because that's what I'm using my computer for editing. So I would prefer the Pro. But like I said, an EVO should be fine for most of your stuff there. That would be the drive you put your OS on. And you would put your maybe most played games on that you'd want to definitely load up quicker than, you know, some other games that you have, like single player games maybe you wouldn't want on the SSD. And then for additional storage, I went ahead and put in a WD 1TB 7200 RPM drive. This is a very generic drive, very, you know, reputable brand. Western Digital's been around forever. Since I was a little kid, I remember seeing them. $43, so that's not a bad price at all for that. You can kind of play with this around. Price per gigabyte gets a little bit better as you go up in space. So I think you can get a 2TB one for like $60. For $20 more, you double your space. So I mean, that's not bad. But I think once you start passing 2 terabytes, it starts to get a lot more expensive, a lot faster. Yeah, like right here, a Seagate Barracuda, which is also a great brand, $59. So whatever. You know, for around $20 more, you double your space. That's up to you, whatever you think you're going to need. For example, on my computer, my gaming PC, I have about 6 terabytes of storage all in all with some random hard drives I have in there. And I do use pretty much all of it. So for me, I definitely would want something a lot more than 1 terabyte. But maybe for you, what you want to do, that should be fine. I was running 1 terabyte for a long time before I got into, like, a lot heavier into PC gaming and stuff like that. So yeah, so now the graphics card. This is going to be mainly dependent on what games you play, what settings you want to play at, what frame rate you want to play at, and what monitor you have, and the resolution you want to be able to play at as well. So if you have a 1080p monitor at 60 hertz and that's all you plan on keeping for a long time, I would say the 1066 gigabyte should be the perfect card for you, especially now with Turing coming out soon. These prices have dropped like crazy. I would say in the next week or so, this guide's probably going to maybe be invalidated by the Turing cards because they're probably going to be so much better for not much more money, honestly. But yeah, the 1060, at least as of today, as of August 15th, is definitely, I would say, a great bargain for 1080p 60 FPS gaming, and probably even above 60 FPS. You could probably get over 100 FPS on some titles with this card. My build, I have a 1070 for the win in it from EVGA. I play on a 1440p monitor at 144 hertz. I don't always get 144 hertz in games, as at the end of the day it is a 1070, not a 1080 Ti, so it's not going to be 100% of a like really super awesome card, you know what I mean? But it is really good though for what I do. I play Forza, I play a lot of PUBG. I even started playing around some Fortnite a little bit on PC, stuff like that. So those games there run pretty well at over 60 FPS at 1440p on my particular computer. The 1060, 6GB obviously won't be as good as the 1070, but like I said, it's all about what you want to pay, what you want to future-proof for, all that. If you plan on getting a 1440p monitor in the near future, I would say go with a 1070, or wait for Turing anyway, probably. Or I would say go with a 1080 Ti if you want to get 4K. I do have a 4K monitor as well. I tried playing on that for a little while with my 1070, but it just was not feasible. I was watching slideshows with the 1070, it just was not fun at all. So I ended up buying this 1440p 144Hz G-Sync monitor because I'm actually able to take advantage of it, so of my 1070. So anyway, yeah, that's going to be that there. The case is very subjective. You can go ahead and pick a case that you like, think it looks good. I like Cooler Master. I like the $35 price with the rebate. It's a good looking case, I think. It looks nice and has probably some nicer features than the $25 Rosewell cases I've been building on the channel. One of the things I hate about Rosewell cases, at least the cheaper ones, is you have to peel off the PCI Express, or rather the PCI slot things on the back. I forget what those are called, the accessory expansion slots. You gotta actually like rip them off with screwdrivers, and you end up cutting yourself, and it's really annoying. These ones look like they just unscrew and fall right out, so that looks a lot better in that way. For me, that's worth $10 right there. So the case is really up to what you guys want. The power supply is really important. I would not skimp on this. I typically use 80 plus bronze power supplies in computers I'm not going to do gaming with or use very often. But on a gaming PC, I would highly, highly, highly recommend an 80 plus gold power supply just because they're better and they will probably last you longer. And yeah, it's really not that much difference in price between, especially at this one's price with $20 off. There's really not, you're really not going to find anything bronze that's going to be that much less. Maybe $20, but you know, really, I wouldn't skimp on a power supply, quite honestly. And then Windows, of course, you can get it from various places. There's so many places you can buy Windows from, and you can get it cheaper, this price, more money, just depends where you go, what you want to pay kind of thing and all that. So, yeah, guys, that's pretty much going to sum up the video. I appreciate you watching the video. If you like it, please remember to subscribe and like the video. And, yeah, guys, thanks a lot.